Star Citizen is either on the precipice of greatness or heading toward an extended period of bug fixing and troubleshooting. I'm LevelCap, and today I want to talk about the current and near future state of Star Citizen. 2022 started off as a bit of a mystery year for this game. One of the next major steps for this massive universe is the addition of the Pyro system, which will allow players to jump between systems for the first time ever, and also it'll effectively double the explorable universe and potential mission content in the game. Clearly, it's a big deal for the player base, but Pyro represents a lot more than just new locations and missions. In order for Cloud Imperium Games to implement Pyro, the first iteration of server meshing has to be functional. And server meshing is the linchpin technology that is required for Star Citizen's universe to function at large scales. In layman's terms, it'll allow multiple servers to run specific areas of the universe, as well as all of the back-end simulation. Once implemented, clients will be communicating regularly with multiple servers simultaneously. It's by far the most complicated technology that the game has had to develop, which is certainly saying something, as they've already achieved massive planets with seamless transitions from space to atmosphere, multi-crew ship functionality, and even entire city planets. Server meshing will take all of that amazing tech and split up the workload into different servers, allowing for hopefully smooth performance and a lot more players in the same area. And to be honest, it sounds complicated as heck. The good news is that the first iteration of this technology is just about ready to test on the public test server. Once patch 3.18 goes up on the PTU, players will be able to test out persistent entity streaming, which will allow for all objects to persist in the universe and not despawn. This tech will allow for things like ship remains to stay in space or on a planet after a fight, which will in turn create salvage opportunities for players looking to salvage shipwrecks and strip intact components from derelicts. But beyond that, it'll also allow dead bodies, weapons, cargo, gear, trash, and everything else to remain in location between server maintenance and after logging off. It's a pretty darn cool technology that will undoubtedly lead to all kinds of new emergent gameplay and probably exploits and problems as well. Hence a planned 2 to 3 month test phase to iron out most of those bugs. It's both an exciting and scary first step into server meshing tech, because it's clear that even the developers are not quite sure what kinds of problems it's going to introduce, and they're trying to give themselves as much time as needed to solve for the unexpected. It's also totally necessary tech to get working before Pyro can be added to the game, so the near future for the game could see some of the most impactful updates players have seen in over, well, 10 years of development, or it could see a very long and buggy fix-it phase. Some of the other bits of content coming with 3.18 are the new salvage system and cargo refactor. The first iteration of salvage will allow for whole stripping of ships using the Drake Vulture or the handheld multi-tool salvage upgrade. This is a feature that people have been waiting on for a long time, especially since the massive Reclaimer salvage ship has been in the game for over 4 years now, with nothing to do but to really sit there and just look cool. Beyond that, Cargo Refactor will allow cargo to exist and persist on shipping grids that will be the first step to higher level shipping gameplay and, well, theft. It's not totally clear what all is coming with the Cargo Refactor update. Persistent hangars or player-owned hangars are something that's been talked about a lot, and also I think a lot of players are hoping for some cargo hauling specific mission trees. Now that's kind of the big picture, slightly more distant future state of the game. On the more immediate content side of things, players are potentially a week or so away from receiving the 3.17.2 patch, adding quite a few missions and opportunities and locations to the game. There's some cool new ship boarding missions, cool planet-side derelict ship missions that have AI nav meshing, allowing for the first walking AI on planet surfaces. AI dropship reinforcements will now be a thing, new delivery and beacon missions that could be pretty interesting. There's a new racetrack location on the moon of Clio, new outpost locations, netcode updates to better interpolate player data and make the game feel less jumpy, new ship combat tuning, a new ground combat vehicle, potentially more responsive AI, and also one of the biggest and most elaborate in-game missions that Star Citizen has ever seen with the Siege of Orison event. plus tons of other small, cool little things that I'm not even mentioning here. It's a big patch and one that should hopefully keep players entertained while the test universe irons out all of the 3.18 bugs. Now 17.2 is coming with a partial server wipe, so players will lose all of their purchased items and money, but you will at least be able to retain your reputation. And overall, it seems like this patch is going to combine a ton of quality of life updates with tons of content, so it is really kind of like a mega patch. Certainly not bad for a mid-year update, and definitely one worth jumping back into the game for if you've taken a little break or gotten bored of the current content on offer. Now, having tested 17.2 on the PTU quite a bit, I'm excited for it. The Siege of Orison in particular is a big deal for the game, though having played it, it does seem clear that a lot of design work still needs to be done in order for massive scale narrative ground missions. In my experience with it so far, it felt like you either had to race to the finish line to experience any of the meaningful content, or you would just get left behind while trying to experience and explore at an enjoyable pace. Most of the big event missions go through quite a few phases before they hit their stride, so I'm trying to temper my expectations a little bit here. In addition to that, the AI still feels very inconsistent. They seem to transition between being extremely responsive, making you have to actually take cover, or just being totally oblivious. This has been an ongoing trend with enemy spaceship AI as well. Sometimes a hammerhead will punch through my shields and send me running, other times it'll miss every shot and let me lazily take it down. No doubt this is server-side performance related, and it's hard to know if this kind of thing will be fixed before server meshing is implemented or after. Now, speaking of server performance, they just tested some 100-player PTU server sizes, doubling the standard 50-player count that we're used to seeing. And although I didn't have a chance to jump into the 100-player servers, streamers like Captain Burke showed off what a 100-player space battle looks like, and to be honest, it seemed, well, decently stable. And I gotta say, it's pretty cool seeing tests like this being run and players proving that large-scale space battles, well, can actually function even with the game in its current non-server meshed state. And it's not to say that the battles were extremely smooth, high frame rate experiences for everyone, but the fact that it's now conceptually proven shows that refinement can now take place, improving the experience for everyone. This is an important step down the road, especially so that the devs can determine the maximum battle sizes to tweak the server meshing accordingly. And this latest test at the very least proved that 100-player space battles are definitely doable. Plus, the game still has many more graphical optimization passes coming, with even more on the way this year. Definitely exciting times for large-scale space battles. Now, on the less exciting front are the progress reports for Squadron 42. This is the single-player campaign component of Star Citizen. Generally, Squadron 42 and the Persistent Universe seem to be at odds with each other, as devs tend to work on one or the other project, where I think a majority of the player base would rather see most of the work being done on the Persistent Universe. And while I think that most people are, well, actually excited to just play Squadron 42, it still feels like we're at least a year away from being able to actually do so, and there's very little media showcases regarding the game, so it's kind of hard to get hyped about it while reading reports of progress being made and shooting things like motion capture scenes and stuff like that. There's not really a lot to actually show, visually speaking, about the progress on the game, so it still sort of remains this nebulous type project that players can't really wrap their heads around, myself included. And because of the crowd-funded nature of Star Citizen, the development progress has always been very open regarding what's being worked on, estimated timelines, and how resources are being spent. However, Squadron 42 is a bit more closed off, I think in part because the devs just don't want to spoil the story, but it's also frustrating considering most of the developers are focusing on it right now and fans just want to see a bit of what they're working on. Now, the upcoming yearly Star Citizen celebration, CitizenCon, is generally where big announcements and reveals happen. Last year, they showcased a lot of the Pyro system, giving players exciting glimpses of what to expect when this eventually launches. And this year, I would imagine we'll see a bit more of Pyro and some other cool gameplay systems that they're working on, but it might also be a good opportunity to perhaps showcase some more Squadron 42. But alas, at this point in time, I think we can only just make educated guesses as to what's going to happen at CitizenCon. All in all, this is an exciting year for the game, not only in the next content patch going to be substantial, but the final pillar of core tech required to make the full persistent universe function at scale is going to begin its first stage of implementation. And of course, once the game has fully implemented server meshing with dynamic server meshing, the second and final stage of server meshing, that may even signify the game's potential transition from an alpha to beta state. But then again, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. In the short term though, we have a nice healthy content and quality of life update on the way with 17.2, and for people who like testing in the buggier PTU builds, persistent entity streaming is not far off with 3.18. 3.17.2 has been taking a bit longer than expected on the test server phase, but we're right on the edge of it being kicked over to the live side. And shortly after that, the most important and impactful game tech will begin its first testing phase. I'm personally a bit excited, a little nervous that there's going to be big problems with 3.18, and of course impatient, which seems to be a pretty common state for anyone who is a fan of Star Citizen. Let me know in the comments if you're playing Star Citizen yet, if you've been testing 17.2, and what you think about the near future prospects for the game. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.